Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr. .eth, you're you, and together we are minting coins. And you reached us here on this Soul Sunday and community. We have the ENS Queens Takeover, and we're probably going to be reviewing a lot of cool stuff too, talking about a lot of different tangents, going down some rabbit holes, and maybe, hopefully, if we have a little bit of time, maybe we'll check out some of the ENS scholarship nominations as well, see what's happening in the ENS space. So. But, you know, starting us off, we have a lot of people that are going to be jumping in and out of the room. But starting us off, we have Ada.eth, we have RNA Sax.eth, and we have Drowning in Pussy.eth. Ladies,
best name, top tier of all time. It's top tier every time. Gives me joy. Gives me joy.
Yeah. It's going to be written. Drowning in Pussy.eth is going to be written in college and high school textbooks when they were talking about ENS back in the day and Web3 back in the day. And, you know, there's going to be books and
the ultimate grail.
It is a grail.
100%.
There's so many uses for this. Like literally so many choices.
Yeah. So why don't we go around the room and do introductions, and who are you, and what do you do? Ada.eth?
Hi, everyone. Ada.eth, Unfolded Life on Twitter and everything else in both Web 2 and Web 3. I work on Web 3 domains, making sure that anything that you want to learn about Web3 is in one place. We talk about security, we talk about onboarding, we talk about community, we talk about news, and all making sure that you along the way have a smooth journey onboarding into this exciting, amazing new technology.
Wow, Web3 domains. That sounds really good. I have to check that at web3domains.com, is it?
Yep, web3domains.com.
Very cool. And R-A-N.
Just think it's Rachel. It's okay. I literally have it as my handle, last name. Like it's literally my name, but I put it like it's a portmanteau thing. So that makes perfect sense. I've been on the show before, but anyways, let's see. I am a content person. I am a Twitter ghostwriter, and I actually work on a newsletter. I will not say which one. That is weekly. And also I just am about the space, kind of just making Twitter content and doing a lot of social media managing for people. That's kind of what I think, what I do all the time. Just here just to percolate the space and hit all the areas and just make this easy for people.
Percolating the space. I love that. I love a good percolator. Really surfaces a lot of interesting stuff around, and you know, makes it really good.
All right, I guess it's my turn. Hi, guys. I am Drowning in Pussy.eth. I am at Queen Gway on Twitter, on Instagram, just about any other platform you could probably find me on. Yeah, I am a part of the ENS Queens. I am a community builder. As Gary said last week, I am what did you say I was? A Web3 consultant? But yeah, I am the wife of Gwayman.eth. He is on here often if you are familiar with him. And that's how I got into Web3 as well. So yeah.
Yeah, nobody is truly unemployed in this world. Ever since Web 2, there's no such thing as being unemployed. If you're unemployed, then you're a consultant, you're a contractor. There's somebody somewhere who will pay you for some service if you put yourself in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I do that too.
100%.
For sure. Consulting is a way to go, honestly. I think I don't know who's going to have a normal 9 to 5 after a certain number of years. I think the next 5 years, no one's going to really, I mean, there will be, it'll have to exist as an underlying thing, but I think in this industry, no.
Well, hopefully that's the goal. So,
that is the goal. But the problem is then it's like 24/7. You don't have 9 to 5. You have 24/7. It does not stop. It's Sunday. I was working most of the day. Like, it's just, that's what it is. I was back from Basel, as you can hear from my voice, feeling like sounding horrible. you're still there. You're on your phone. You're like networking. You're doing stuff. You're trying to find gigs. It's a constant hustle. It's a constant grind. And you're just like, okay, everything is just moving so quickly all the time. I just started this weirdly, some like person like followed me. It's like this thread. It's like this Telegram group, and all it is, you can't message in it, but it's just news all day long. Just Web3 news all day long. That is literally it. And I'm like, it is nonstop. There's a curated article that this is literally just breaking news only, and it is like every hour there's something, which is insane, in the best possible way though.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I used to say, as somebody who has been an entrepreneur and has been running a Web2 business for quite some time, with Gary actually, is I always used to say that, and I belong to a lot of different networking groups locally, and it's, as business owners, I feel that we often leave 48, 40-hour a week jobs to work 24/7 on your business. Like when people often say, oh, you own your own business, you can pick your own hours. It's like, that's awesome. You can absolutely 100% go to the gym at like 9 or 10 a.m. whenever you go. You can absolutely meet somebody for lunch or coffee at like 2 or 3 or 4. But then where your friends, if you still have friends that are working regular jobs, are home at like 5 and 6, and they're like chilling, watching Netflix, you're like, I still have like 5 hours of work to do.
Yeah,
so it's
still,
like, it's
still grinding on crypto Twitter. That's literally it. I'm like, it's constant. Like the real hours of that are like, if you're in Eastern time, like 9, like I think 9 to 12. Like there's certain DJed hours that exist. Like I specifically like to buy things at 6 or 7 a.m. because no one's online and the gas is cheap as fuck. Yeah. Gas is like nothing because no one's awake.
Thread Girl, who is often on the show, like the show is like middle of the night for her. Like oftentimes when we wrap up with, if we do an after show, it will be like 8 a.m. for her. Literally, it's like you stay awake during the entire day, and then it's like, or the entire night, for her, and then you sleep throughout the day.
Thread Girl never sleeps. Like I am convinced she's a robot. She is a Web3 robot, and I'm convinced no one will ever convince me otherwise. This girl is on Twitter 24/7.
Yeah, dead ass on Twitter 24/7. I feel like it's something that's kind of almost like in a weird way, like it's hard when you have a partner and you are doing this if they're not in the industry. Like my husband is not, and there's like, he's like on his own stuff. Like he does a lot of stuff that's crypto adjacent. Like he's great at Midjourney. He's great at Reddit. Great with finances. No interest. It is like awful for me. But I mean, at least it gives me the freedom when I go to events. I don't have to worry, like, is he entertained? Have I introduced him to the right people? How's this going? Because he's doing his own entire industry otherwise. But it's just like, they don't always get it. The hours are just make no sense. Yeah. The timings of stuff makes no sense. Like, I'll be like, oh my God, it's like I'm stopping and like on vacation. Oh my God, I need to mint something. It's coming out right now and I need to do this now. This has to happen exactly now or I will not get this thing. And it's just like, what? What? I mean, like, he played video games growing up. I mean, it's different, but that's like, this is not even close. This is not even close. You're like, I could miss out on generational wealth because of you. Like, you guys
I'm really, really curious because, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was the last week. We did a couple show and we had Drowning and Gwayman and then Gary and I, and talked a lot about what it's like to be in a Web3 couple together and what it's like to like degen together, right? And we had kind of similar stories that first, Gary and Gwayman got in and then they, couldn't stop talking about it. And I just was like, okay, fine, tell me about it. And slowly got in. So I'm really curious, Rachel, for you, because you said your husband isn't in it. Yeah. What was your journey like? Like, how did you get in? And did you, have you tried to get your husband in a space? What are the conversations like? Because I know for us, like, we degen all the time. Like, that's all we talk about.
I'm jealous. I am jealous. He literally said to our couples therapist, "You don't have any other hobbies other than crypto. I'm bored. I'm bored of hearing you talk about it." And I was just like, oof. Am I in
I've
the
definitely been there, so I understand like where he's coming from.
Like, damn, it was brutal too to hear that. But yeah, so I was in 2013. I wanted to buy weed and not have to deal with the dealer because I just don't like the back and forth and all of that. And I went to art school. One of my friends, like a lot of people from art school, were like really into it. So I went on Silk Road. I had Tor browser, Mt. Gox, like that kind of thing. And just I was a broke college student. I didn't put money in. Like honestly, Mt. Gox, like I think I've dodged a bullet slightly. And then I went to work at the Wall Street Journal for the publisher, and like they had a lot of rules about what you could and could not invest in because of access to information. So I kind of was like, okay, I guess maybe it's so stupid. I totally could have bought crypto and no one would know, and no one would care. But I was just like, I don't know. So then 2020 came around. I wasn't working there anymore, and I was just like, I panicked, bought and sold a Bitcoin in a day at $5,000. Idiot. Because I hadn't worked for a while, and I was kind of just like, "Ooh, my God!" Because I had actually started dipping my toe back in around like February, March 2020, kind of on through Robinhood, which like that's kind of embarrassing. So I mean, it's it doesn't really transfer over exactly. You own it's not the same. You literally don't own the Bitcoin. Like you own fractional things that are from Robin. You don't. It's just not yours. So, I mean, that's kind of like, I don't feel as bad now knowing that because it really wouldn't have been mine. And that would have been an absolute bitch to cash out. I would have had to cash out in a fiat. That would be my only choice.
Where'd you buy it through?
What?
Where'd you buy it through?
Robinhood.
Robinhood.
Because I was actually starting, my husband and I were starting to like get really into like investing in like regular stocks. But I was just like, the returns on that are absolute shit. And I was just bored. I was like, you know what? I used to do shit with crypto. I should look back into it again, and kind of went back in. And then I kind of started doing a lot of like altcoin investing, a lot of flipping. 2021 was a big point for me too. I did a shit ton there, but the problem was like everything was all-time highs. But I mean, at least I followed my like gut feeling, and I sold off some ETH at all-time high, which was really satisfying, honestly. Like end of November last year. Because I was just like, I'm naturally very skeptical of a lot of things. So I was just like, my husband was involved me with some of that. He will tolerate like the more financy, more crypto side but he's actually funny. He's really good at coming up with NFT project ideas. It's like almost like that episode of America's Next Top Model where she goes to like the Shibuya district in Japan, and they're like, pick out an outfit, and they just pick like, she picks the most random shit, and then she wins the competition. And then they're just like, oh, I won I put the dumbest thing on I could possibly find. Because sometimes it just works. Sometimes it just happens and it just works. And it's like entertaining. He does ENS degen with me. That is the one thing he will do, because he also likes words, thank God, at least. And he's he's a civil engineer. So like one of the few that can write or like do anything remotely with words at all. So we go and we degen together with that. Like he'll just like jokingly say like something .eth like all the time, and I'll be like, "Ooh, is that a good one?" And like we've gone and like it's just a good bonding activity. You get a little high, you go think about like what's gonna work. You just like sometimes you think like it's like a cat. It's almost like playing like categories, but then with money, and just like fucking around with it. And it's just fun. It's like for now it's like $8 to $10 a pop. You do the 1-year registration if you're really feeling kind of on the fence about it. Like, am I really going to go for it or not? And it's just fucking fun. It's just deeply fun. But I've done a lot of this by myself. But I'm somebody who likes to research. Like, I've been a researcher before, like professionally. So that's, for me, I like to read the white papers. I like to read everything about it. I read a little bit of the ENS Constitution. Well, the ENS DAO Constitution. I've actually been trying to get more into that lately. And I think that should be really interesting. I think it's fascinating.
I think it's interesting to me because everybody has kind of like a different path, and I've really been looking into ENS, and Gary's been in ENS since sort of like the very, very beginning. So like the stories that I tell about it is that there were like weeks on time that he would just like disappear in his office like 24/7, like wake up at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, what is going on? And, being here for the beginnings of the Web 2, I have known a lot of people that have, you know, bought domain names, made really, really, really good money. I've always been a builder. Like I've always built on top of you know, .com. And so I definitely, as a somebody who's been advertising and as a marketer, you know, I totally understand the, you know, the potential. And then I also understand what the Web 2 and the .com is lacking, that the, you know, the Web3 like solves all these problems so amazingly and so seamlessly, you know. But it's amazing to me because a lot of people do come into ENS, and I'm always shocked how little we actually talk about the, you know, the structure of the ENS DAO, and how, and I know that there's, you know, there's a lot of really well functioning DAOs, but I think as DAOs go, the ENS is really like one of the most successful, you know, decentralized autonomous organizations out there. And it's always really amazing to me. And I often use sort of their structure when I explain to, you know, regular business owners, like why the technology is so revolutionary. Because they're just like, well, I just don't understand. Like people are buying these really expensive pictures of monkeys. And I'm like, you're so missing the point.
Oh my
you
God.
know, and it's like, and I've tried so hard to like really, really, really break it down. But I think anybody who comes from that traditional organizational structure, it doesn't work. Like I used to work with nonviolent communication where we actually would mediate conflict and go into those, you know, big companies and, you know, mediate conflict across like different power structures, you know, starting with like, you know, the top and then going down. And it was very interesting because everybody was very interested about the concept of it. Like, yes, we're in. But once you actually started hearing like what people at different power levels had to say, and especially the lower you kind of got down that totem pole, it was you know, like people, workers had a lot of grievances. Like employees were like, yeah, like I'm never listened to. Like my
everybody has a lot of grievances.
Yeah, like everybody's always like, this system is totally rigged, and all the people on top make all the decisions. And so when DAOs started happening, I'm like, holy shit, this is like our antidote for everything that we're doing wrong. And so I always want to say, you know, to people that are first getting into ENS, it's like, go actually check out the DAO, check out the structure, and then go and buy the token and start participating in the governance. You know, even if you just have a few. What was that?
Not financial advice.
No, totally.
Yeah, NFA. Never. No, but I mean, it's so professional looking. I looked into it recently. I'm like, I like to know as much of the technical details of things that I'm going to be putting my money into as I possibly can. So I was looking into it. It's so professional. That was what I was like. I was so struck by it. I'm like, wow, like this. It has like, it's cohesive. It has like almost looks like a nice message board is kind of where all the votes are. Like I was like, this is really nicely done, because I've been in, most DAOs are in Discord. I've been in and out of a bunch of them, or Telegram, and it's like, oh my God, this is a fucking mess. Like that is nice and organized. And I'm like, and they have a freaking like leather bound Constitution book thing, and they always advertise at the top. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. Like I'm impressed. I'm like, is this just, I'm like, that's kind of a baller move. It's like, I'm sure that's, they're losing money on it, but it's probably an amazing collector's item, and also just like shows how legit and serious they are about what they're doing. I'm like, shit, okay. Like literally the first thing I think when I got my first ENS was like last year. I saw, so dumb. Okay, can I tell you, like, this is my most embarrassing one. I'm going to be real and just be embarrassing. Okay, so everyone added the .eth to their name on Twitter. I just thought it was a stupid thing. And I was just like that. But then I was just like, once I I corrected myself on it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is something where I better have, my name better fucking be available on ENS or I'm an idiot. And I like immediately went and bought as soon as I knew what the hell that was. And I was just like, oh, thank God. And then I was like, okay, well, you need to learn things now about this because you don't want to look stupid. But yeah, I've never admitted that to anybody before. Like, that's so embarrassing. It is. It totally is. That like, I just popped it on there and then I didn't even know what the fuck it was. I was just like, I saw people putting it on there. And that's so embarrassing because like somebody was like, that was when I was just first starting to get into NFTs really, and anything in the like non just crypto area of investing. And I was like, oh, thank God. Okay. No one's ever caught me on that. I've never told anyone that. That is an exclusive here. It's so embarrassing, but I'm just like, you know what? For sake of transparency and honesty, it's important to be totally honest about shit in this industry. You have to.
Yeah, 100%. And I often think,
like, fuck it. It's embarrassing, but it's true. And a lot of people probably did the same shit, but would never admit that because it's like, it's fucking embarrassing. But at least you have to go educate yourself. Like, if you do something stupid like that, you'd be like, okay, so what is it that I'm actually buying? Let me go read the like DAO Constitution. How is this structured? What do you do? And it's like, that's just how I take things on. It's like, why wouldn't you do that? It just seems stupid if like if this is a lifestyle for you. That's when it started to really become a lifestyle. It was about that point. It was like the November, December of last year. It was like, where this is it's a personality now. Like before it was kind of like, I was just quietly investing, talking with my friends about it. Like there was a couple gains I made on like some crazy altcoins. Like I made a couple $1,000x. That was fun as shit. That was awesome. I was like iExec RLC, the most random shit. I like made I think I stayed afloat for a couple months from that, which was dope. But
yeah,
that's fun. But yeah, I would always read the white papers anyways and go on the little blogs and be like, okay, but this was all a solo journey. ENS is now like, it's about people, which is what's like NFTs are about people. ENS is about people. Crypto is more in like independently, like just no one's gonna own me. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'm gonna put my money here. I'm gonna speculate. I'm gonna do my fucking thing. But like NFTs are like so much more about other people. It's so much more about being part of the community with other people. And ENS in particular too, it's like understanding how we're going to be using this system and how we're going to be like really getting ahead of it. And it's like a mixture of like speculative fun, but actual like utility as well with it. Like there's actual use cases, there's actual things you can do with it. And I think not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, absolutely. As somebody who has been here sort of since the very beginning, I mean, we definitely had what I would say community, but it was really people coming together because they had similar ideas, and you always want to talk to alike people. But I think NFTs really brought together that whole sense of communities because people would come together around the projects, and ENS is I think on a much, bigger, especially kind of where we're heading on a much bigger scale, but it still is like, one of those projects. But the amazing thing that's happening is that now we're starting to see that people are building on it. And speaking about communities, I was hoping we'll have 3402 here because I know she was one of the kind of the original people, but Drowning, I know you have been a part of the ENS Queens since the very, very beginning. And so I'm curious if you could share kind of, how it came about, how this kind of, unlikely group of women that was just on Twitter kind of starting to learn and get curious about ENS, how that group got together and created ENS Queens.
Yeah, so I believe what happened was Thread Girl, she put out a tweet and she was like, I'm thinking about, because there wasn't a lot of women really back then either, and she was like, I wanted to maybe make a group chat of a lot of with the ladies in ENS. Like, do you guys want to do that? And we were all like, yeah, let's do it. So I think there's only like 5 of us, at the beginning. And then like everyone just kind of started adding their friends to the chat. So that's how that got started. But then it kind of, as more people started joining the community, and a lot of people had questions about ENS, it was nice to have some ladies that might know some or might have a spouse that wouldn't be able to answer questions. And it was just nice to be able to go into like somewhere where you don't have to ask like on the timeline. You can just go in like your DMs and hopefully they know the answer for your question, because sometimes when you're asking questions, like you feel like everyone knows it, and like you don't want them to like think that you're like stupid. But yeah, so that's more how that got started. But I am so happy to be part of it. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I was trying to think of all the things of it because Baby Gwei started crying. I got distracted.
It's cute. Full disclosure, I am definitely trash at being involved with ENS Queens. I will say that. I should be better about it. That's things I need to be doing. This is my goals for 2023. That is the goals for 2023. For sure. No, but it's like really awesome group of people. And I'm just like in the chat as well. Like a friend, exactly like you said, like that like a friend after friend added me, invited me in, and everyone is, it's great to have this like kind of like forum for questions and just for everyone to understand. Like it's such a niche thing, which is what's awesome. And it's like, because you think like you go to crypto events and you're just like, okay, you see there's the unwritten rule of if you see another woman there, you say hi. Does not matter. You say hi. There's no hierarchy. There is no bureaucracy. There is no nothing. It does not matter who the fuck they are. It does not matter who they are in their actual like day-to-day life. If you're at an event and you see Paris Hilton, who actually is in ENS Queens group, which I love that. I didn't know that until recently. Actually, I was like looking, I was like, oh shit, okay. Good for her. I love this. But like you could talk to her. That's how this works. Like that's the system is. And I think ENS too is even smaller. It's kind of like we have to stick together and we like this is what it is. Like you have to help each other and stick together. And there's no such thing as there really is no such thing as dumb question. This shit's hard. It's not the most intuitive thing at first. And once you understand it, it's super easy to understand. But like it's a hurdle for a lot of people, I think, which is exciting to see. Like I think that having this be like it's like a bunch of women kind of going for it, it's gonna be easier for other women to want to get involved and understand it. I think this is like just in terms of like thinking about generational wealth growing, it's most like right now like democratized like opportunity because like you can get in on the ground floor by $8 to $10 if you have a really good one that you mint and you have an absolute banger versus like something that's like a little further down the road, like or like a more of an NFT, like it's going to be like a couple $1,000 to really like see a kind of return that you're looking for at this point. Versus like an ENS, like you can just like, just depends on what you get. Just depends. It's like exactly the same thing. It's about kind of the right. It's like a mixture of just, it's a very intelligent speculation. Versus it is like NFTs themselves are speculation. Cryptos themselves are speculation. This is a very specific, nuanced, like psychological one. Like what kind of things are people going to desire to use as their personal identity for their business as a subdomain? What are people going to be looking at? You're basically predicting what do you think is going to be powering the rest of the world for the next God knows how many years in the future. Like honestly, forward on, like just forward onwards from where we are. And that is really what ENS kind of is. It's like that is what the like smart ENS investing is. And honestly, is like what is going to be useful, what is going to be usable, what is something that people are going to want to identify with, and how do I get hands on it, and how do I have the right timing?
Yeah, in a way that I often explain the new technologies, especially to kind of current business owners, and I'm always looking back, and we have done it since kind of the very beginning of the internet, is remembering the early days of AOL chat rooms and building the HTML websites. It really was like all degens. Like it really was like the young kind of more techie kids that all of a sudden saw this incredible opportunity that we can talk to anybody across the world, where before, if you wanted to have a conversation, like a phone conversation, a phone company would charge you like an arm and a leg and probably would want you like firstborn and a kidney. Like it just was like so expensive. I remember calling back when I first moved here from Poland, like those it was like a per minute. Like you literally were like looking at the clock and be like, I can't talk longer than 15 minutes because it's just going to cost so much money.
Calling the next city over, right? Calling
the next zip code.
Like barely the next, right? Like literally like 45 minutes away, a half hour away, you were going to pay these exorbitant rates. Yeah.
Like $20 for a call or something.
It was crazy.
Like,
it was
I'm like, it's funny. Crazy. I'm young, but I'm old enough to remember these things. Like that's the funny thing is like I'm young-ish. I'm like I feel like right in that spot where it's like I can remember what the world is like without having a personal computer, without having email. Like I can remember that. But it's like so it's interesting. It's like I'm in a very different spot than I think in a couple like more younger degens are like there's a big I'm 29, I'm almost 30. That's the difference between that and being 22. Like that's I was born like right at that divide. I feel like it's really, I can feel the difference. Like was able to remember like when you have a cell phone, you have to click the number of like buttons in order to get the text. And it was going to cost when you accidentally connected to the internet and you're like, oh, my parents are going to fucking kill me.
It was expensive. I accidentally did it too. But I have a funny story. So my brother, so I didn't know how to text back then. So like, you know how you're saying you click like 3 times to get this letter, and he was like, I could text behind my back, and I was like, no, you can't. And he was like, all right, tell me something to like type. And I told him, and like he literally typed a whole sentence behind his back, and I was so impressed. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And now that I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, that was so easy, because like you just have to go for like look for a 2 and type A, and then look for like 9 for Z, and it was just like
easier than Morse code probably.
Yeah, and if you do it a lot, like you understand keyboard, just like, you know, I mean, most of us that are writing content, like I can type without looking at the keyboard, and I can do it fairly fast, because I've been doing it pretty much, you know, through most of my life. But, you know, going back to what I was saying is I think that with the first, like, as the internet started becoming popular, it created access. Like it created, it created a doorway to not just access information, but to also access other communities, to also access other people. I mean, that's when we first started seeing, you know, people actually meeting before any of the online website. Like, that's what I always say. It's like, you know, things are happening, like trends are happening behind closed doors before there's even structure. So before there were even some of the first online dating companies created, people were already meeting in AOL chat rooms. Like I've heard stories of, you know, people getting married because back in the day they either met in AOL chat room or some of those like early games that they were playing where you could chat to the players. I mean, you know,
those
it's
people
incredible.
were really crazy, right? You think about the Craigslist dating, like
that was like wild to me.
They're all serial killers, right? Like women in Long Island were being murdered, right? From the Craigslist killer. It was like a famous thing.
Absolutely.
And people were afraid of doing online dating, just like everything online. Even in 2005, everything online was really skeptical. The internet was still a fad in 2005. Mm-hmm. And yeah, to think about the people that were AOL chat and then getting married and then realizing, like, people looking at that and not like thinking it as obviously obscure, but not realizing that just a couple decades in the future, more than half of all marriages were going to be initiated through a meeting through a Tinder or a Snapchat or an Instagram or something or other.
Exactly, like having these online conversations. But I think, you know, very early, you know, we started to see some of the bigger brands that had foresight, right? They were like, oh, I have to secure my domain name. Like they were like, not sure where it's going yet. Like Gary said, 2005, it was still like, oh, internet is a fad, it's dying, you know, it's going away. It's you know, it's so amazing. And you know, we have had the same sort of pattern. Like I always say, you know, history repeats itself, because I remember in 2008, I was working in an advertising agency in San Francisco. And that was when Instagram was literally your personal photo book that your friends could like share. Like I remember the early days on Instagram, I was like, once I looked like who was following me, and I'm like, who are these people? Like I thought they were all my friends. Like, are there strangers looking at my photos? How weird. Like they don't even know me. Like it just was like such a bizarre concept. But I remember in those early days, we were already working with brands. And this was before there were any business pages on Facebook. Instagram was literally, like I said, a photo album.
Oh, yeah.
But the brands were already like, there's something here because you can organize community. So they were literally doing these Facebook posts, and they were literally outsourcing to agencies. I mean, we were we were managing their social media accounts like that early. Like I said, before there was any infrastructure, they were already rigging it. They were already like, okay, I can only have a personal page. Well, fine, it's going to be a personal page for my business. And I think that we're seeing the same thing. And it's very interesting when people are like, well, I just like don't have the use cases as to like where the ENS yet is going to go. And I'm like, it's already going. Like it's already going. By the time where some of the things get established, the early adopters have already went like 10,000 miles and have, established themselves and have gotten following. And, I mean, that's what, like we were talking about being the Web3 consultants, is because when they go to the big advertising agencies, like they don't know anything. They're not immersed in this technology unless they're super smart and forward thinking, and they have some people on their staff. But that's what I always say with Web3 domains. Like when this goes more and more and more mainstream, everybody who's now just basically degenning or using it as a hobby or building a business on it without like, even if it doesn't have like a real business structure, it's Rachel, what you were saying, like it's creating content, right? It's managing social media accounts. It's taking all the information that you have and education that you have learned, all the research, and applying it. And, we're going to see it really, really quickly. Like I literally give it a few years and that infrastructure is going to start popping up. And then everybody who's DJing right now, there's going to be a huge opportunity, because anybody who's going to come and create structure in the space is going to look for people that have been doing this forever. Like they're just like, oh, you were here for the last 2 years? Excellent. Like, please manage this.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's funny is like a lot of these companies have Web3 strategists, consultants. Those bitches do not know about ENS. There are very, very few. That is like holy grail level stuff. Like I'm like, this is what I'm setting myself up to be doing, is like I know every little section. Like you got to go and know everything. You got to know Bitcoin maxis. You got to know like altcoins. You got to know even more obscure altcoins. You got to know ENS. You got to know NFTs. You got to know storytelling NFTs, utility NFTs. Like got to know every single bit of the space to even try to like at this point. Because I think all these companies are going to have this. They've been trying to bring in their people. They've been laying them off. They've been like trying. They don't know what the hell to do. And then I think all of a sudden everything's just going to roll back out. Like all the banks have been kind of just been thirsty for this for the past 2 years or so. So having worked corporate, that's about the timeline, 2-3 years for like anything really big, innovative wise. That's like to start dipping that toe. So I think all of a sudden one day it's going to be, I think ENS is going to become like, basically how you have Venmo, Cash App, etc. It's going to be one of them needs to start using it. One of them needs to get on it. They're being stupid for not doing that. I think it's ridiculous. And hopefully one of them at least does. I don't think they will because they didn't hire me.
Well,
anybody that sends Ethereum, right? Like, I mean, like PayPal, Robinhood.
Yeah.
At whatever point they allow you to buy Ethereum and or Bitcoin, because you can use ENS to send Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So at any point they're letting people take their crypto and send it from one wallet to another. There's no reason why they couldn't incorporate ENS. And the only difference between incorporating ENS and not incorporating ENS is copying and pasting the address versus typing in someone's human readable name.
Which way
it doesn't make any sense. And in terms of what you're seeing with the intelligence of like opportunity in ENS, ENS is like poker, and NFTs is like playing the slots. There's no, it's just slots. And so with ENS and playing poker, when we look at Web 2, there's a lot of leaders in Web 2 in domaining and .com domaining, where there's people who I see that they hand register a .com name. There's 220 million .com names registered. They hand registered all the time. Like you hear it all the time. .com name 3, 4, 5 months ago. And then now 3, 4, 5 months later, they sold it for $5, $10, $15, $20, $25,000 because they were paying attention and they were understanding things in the market before other people. So those patterns, as Ada was saying, are going to repeat over and over again. And now all the obscure stuff that's ENS and people adding into their Twitter account and being like, I don't understand this. Later it's going to be really ubiquitous.
Yeah, I think banks are literally going to roll that shit out and be like, oh, hey guys, like, they had the chip card that came in the mail. All of a sudden it's gonna be like, hey everyone, we have now decided to roll out to Ethereum name service, and we're just gonna be doing this. So my most savage thing I've ever done, my ex who I hate, I bought his name as the .eth, and when he has to eventually go in, he has to broker it through me. Fuck him. He's blocked me on everything else. He got to message me through ENS. Sucker. I'm married. He's not. He can suck it. Like, that's what's the funniest thing is. He will not. I'm never coming around to this until he absolutely has to.
You're a nut.
I am a nut. You gotta play chess, not checkers. If you want revenge on people, you gotta play chess, not checkers. I bought like every one of my family's names. I bought like various friends. I bought like, what's everyone's favorite, like, other than the main ones that they've got. No comments. Which one? Like, what are your favorite? Like, what do you see as your grails? Other than, we all know Drowning Pussy is a fucking magical top 10 grail, but like, what are your grails? Your favorites, if not for like potential, just because you like it, like anything.
I think Ada, that's a grail.
Yeah, that is a grail. That is absolutely a grail. 100%. Number one, three digit. Number two, like, say, like, it can be ADA, crypto, be that. It can be that. It can be like, also just as a palindrome, it hits so many things at once.
Yeah,
so much at once.
I really, I'm very big, and this probably has to do with me coming from the branding world. I really understand the whole, like, you need to establish your brand, and especially if you're creating content, you want that content to be associated with your brand, and both through like Twitter, through like the accounts, but then also as you build out your brand visually. And this is what I've always said is when you're a small business owner, right, you have to get creative because you don't have millions and millions and millions of dollars. But what we're seeing with everybody in the ENS and Web3 space is that you can build a community, and that's like that's incredible, and all of that is equal money. Because when you see big brands, like when you see, like, I remember when GoDaddy first came on the scene, I was thinking about it recently. I was like, how did they get like all of a sudden, like, that's like the first stop? It didn't used to be that way. Like, I remember where GoDaddy didn't exist, is they just did a massive marketing campaign. Like, it just, like, everywhere you looked, it was like GoDaddy, GoDaddy, GoDaddy. And you don't have to do it for a long time, but it's like, the push like that is millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so I'm always like, whatever you're building is, you want to make sure that you kind of secure the pieces. And even though if, you're building on that ETH, you still want to make sure that you, like, if you're building a brand, that you have the .com. And so I've had, Unfolded Life, that has been my brand for a very long time. I want to say like maybe since like 2012. I think that's like when my Twitter was actually created in 2012. And so .com and Facebook and LinkedIn, like all of that was like locked in. And so I was like, I'm Unfolded Life. I don't need anything else. And Gary found it, and he's like, hey, what do you think about Ada? And at that point, I was mostly going by Adriana in my professional life. And so Ada was like, a nickname. Like, my closest friends call me Ada. And I was like, I don't know, like, I guess it's cool.
Now everybody in Web3 is your closest friend.
It is so cool to be called like
family. We're not friends.
It is so odd. Like, I'm so happy. But I remember I was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll use it. I'll put it on my Twitter. But I was like, it's an investment.
It's a grail.
And now I'm kind of like, it's a brand. Like, I'm not sure. And it's interesting because, right, if like the offer was right, potentially, but I was just talking about it recently, and I'm like, I think it passed that point where I could be like, yes, I'm okay like selling it. Like it would be a lot for me to part with it because it's so much has been built on it. And so I think like I'm almost somebody had, because we all have different philosophies. And I actually want to hear from all of you, what's your like, how do you determine what you buy? Like, because everybody has it. Like, some people do it for fun. I have this thing where it's like every single daddy that I buy, like I want to build on. I know I don't have enough lifetimes, but I'm just like, oh, I know the perfect thing to build on it. And so I have a few things that I'm like, I am definitely building on it. And
I'm gonna creep on your wallet. I'm like, my favorite thing though is I like to find big brains who get particularly good ones, and then I find backward from there. Because if most people, they got their real name, it's my favorite way to search people for things now. It's fun, interesting. I'm bullish as hell because like Google put that in, you can search that automatically. You can search wallets, which I'm like, that's awesome. That was a really great day because they have been very quiet about Web3 plays. Them and Amazon have been very quiet.
They're highly, so I mean, just to be clear, Google is highly investing into cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, both directly and then also indirectly through their venture capitalist arms. But they both, Amazon and Google, Alphabet, they own a lot of patents in the space.
Yeah.
And we definitely see they're making moves. And Eric Schmidt, who used to be the CEO and whatnot, he's he's on the board of Chainlink Labs now, and so there's a lot of interplay going on with the big boys.
Oh, there definitely is. It's just funny. It's like it's how they're not advertising it. It's like not a selling point for them. Where for a lot of other companies, it is. Like I think a lot of banks in particular, like think about Fidelity rolled out like that you can invest in crypto for like with your 401k. Like
no, JP Morgan. Look at JP Morgan. Yeah, Fidelity's cool, and the CEO that runs that, she's like amazing and totally a forward thinker in terms of crypto. Great. Yeah, Abigail Johnson. Thank you. And then but in terms of companies and banks saying one thing and doing another, look at Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase.
Oh God,
when they were saying we're going to fire anybody if they're trading crypto, we're going to this is a scam, don't do this. His daughter was buying crypto while he was making the price go down. His company was hiring crypto traders, right? They were actively trading crypto. And so just to your point, it's this whole thing where, behind the scenes, they're building, they're growing, they're taking possession of digital asset, digital space, digital real estate, which is very limited in Web3, the good stuff at least.
Yeah.
And they're telling all of us, don't build, don't look over here, don't pay attention, don't buy crypto, don't buy Bitcoin, don't get your ENS name. And we just need to get out there. Yeah, we need to message.
That's my favorite. Pricegouge.eth is my grail. That is one of my favorite grails. Pricegouge.eth. It is good. They are trying to price gouge us. I think that's literally exactly what it 100%. Is.
And I think also if you don't, because of the nature of blockchain and the the transparency of it, but then also because of how the technology is right intimately connected to the to the price. If they announce, hey, we're building on it, then all of a sudden, not only that, but they're going to be saying, hey, we're moving forward. So everybody else who's paying attention is going to be like, oh, then we have to jump on ship and build. If they're like, no, we're not doing any of this, then it's like, I honestly think everybody, like all the big companies at this point, right? It's 2022, almost 2023. I think almost all of the big companies are building. Behind. They either are working with, contractors, they have their own teams, but I think everybody's, we're past the exploration stage. But when you look at the life cycle of what it takes to build, it takes time. But I predict, and we can go back to the show and be like, oh yeah, we talked about this.
We will.
Sure.
Right? I can be totally wrong because we don't know, but I predict the next the next bull market, right, in another 2 or 3 years, we're literally going to see all these huge companies, Google, Alphabet, Amazon, you know, SpaceX, and Facebook and Meta, and all of them are gonna literally all of a sudden be like, ta-da! Like it's and now you're gonna have all the normies like onboarding, but the thing is they are then going to onboard into like what those big companies want them to onboard, which I think that version of the metaverse and Web3 is going to lose a lot of the pieces that make it so incredible and revolutionary right now.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't always serve the biggest purpose. And we talk about it a lot on this show, is that the technology is made to actually help the humanity evolve in a direction of being more transparent, more collaborative, right? More community-based, more interconnected. But that's not necessarily the agenda that we see is going to serve, where the world is going.
No, sadly. I get that. It's like, I think about this, you were talking earlier, like Instagram, like early Instagram, like I remember being on it, like it was just pure fun. Like as soon as you monetize it, it's trash. As long as like the normies come in, the big companies come in, you monetize it, it loses. It says like it used to be almost like a BeReal is now. People would just put, I remember like my first post was like just like a horribly filtered like picture of like a handbag. Just really stupid, like really bad. But like it was fun. I got a little dopamine hit. It was enjoyable. Like that's kind of like where we're at now, I feel like, is we're doing the like terrible shots on Instagram just for ourselves because we like it. And we don't have a bunch of followers yet. We don't have all this buy-in. We don't have all these targeted ads. It's literally just the photos, literally just that. Just the pure fun and like someone being like, oh my God, I put this up on Instagram. It looks cool, right? Like there's not this petty shit like hasn't developed yet. Like that's like version 1. We got like versions like layer 2 basically of it is like, okay, I'm going to start using this to like bully people and be like, oh, I'm just going to be like, I posted this photo with this person on Instagram. You didn't get to come. Like the new features just evolved just to be terrible. I think like stories, like I'm here without you. Like I remember that being a big deal. Like this happened when I was like in high school. Like this is kind of when like Facebook came out. Like that would be a hot, like big topic. I think I've definitely cried about it a couple times. Like they didn't invite me to this person's birthday party and they posted about Facebook. Like if you look back, I'm sure everyone here had Facebook in like 2008, 2009. You look back, like how cringy and like, but it's so earnest and so pure. And like you haven't really monetized. You're just doing it for you. We are in the doing it for us kind of like phase. And I think as soon as more shit comes in, it's going to be shit. I'm here to enjoy the ride. Hopefully you got a nice 10 to 15 years of it being fun and like enjoyable and having like, I think there's going to be just two groups of people in this. There's going to be like a lot of the OGs here who are just like kind of just, they do their thing. There's going to be doing a lot more of the secret underground DeFi and like really more decentralized everything. And there's going to be the mainstream regulated people that are just going to be there trying to monetize. If I think, fortunately, fortunately yet unfortunately, bad actors will kind of go over there and we'll kind of all be over here. And hopefully we've made our money. And then we'll be doing whatever Web 4, Web 5, whatever thing just for us, just to keep going with it. Because builders are just always going to build. This is kind of how it rolls. Like you're just going to keep going. And I think that like, hopefully for some people, for most of us, like we'll have the firepower in terms of the money, do it and just keep building and building and building like what we want to see the world becoming and not have to worry as much about like, oh, do we have buy-in from this? Do we have buy-in from that? Like, no. Like, I think we're going to need it to really jumpstart what we've got. But I think after a while, like, then we can kind of just like, I think it's going to be like a whole like group of people just like doing their thing, building these like collaborative communities out in the middle of nowhere because like the world's kind of fucked anyways. Like, I really think it's just going to be such a difference in mindset that's going to evolve over time. And we're just going to have these two separate realities. But I mean, we can't really have one without the other. That's kind of, I think a lot of Silicon Valley people must feel that way too. I think like Like you look at like Jack Dorsey.
100%.
They're planning for it. It's not they're planning for it. They know it's coming.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think, I mean, you can look at some of the people, and there's has been, right, this ongoing joke about how we miss MySpace for those of us who were right back on MySpace. And when you first joined MySpace, right, Tom was your first friend always, and he remained your first friend. I mean, right, through the duration. And it's incredible because we look back, right, and he sold it for great amount of money, and is now traveling the world, taking photos, like doing like what he loves to do. And I think we can do the same thing with that Jack Dorsey, right, at some point. And of course, I don't know why, like nobody really knows why, but at some point it just got to the point where those social media platforms become so politicized that it's not, you become really removed from your original idea that very well might have been about connecting people. And I remember back in the day, I was very early user of Google. That was like when to do Gmail, you had to get like an invitation code. Like a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm trying this new email service, like there's a code, check it out. And I loved it because it just was so clean, because we came from like using like the browsers that just like were gooped up with stuff, and it just was like so busy. And then Google came in, and it was like this perfectly white, clean space with just like a search bar, right? And it was like nirvana. And but the search was so incredibly precise, and they could have sold, right? And they they decided, actually it wasn't them, right? It was Yahoo that was like, yeah, no, we'll pass because it's too good, right? And whoever was part of that deal that exited, I bet that they kick themselves every single day. Like every morning they wake up and they're like, that was the biggest fuck up of my life. Like you don't get a do-over on that. Like you just don't. But the thing is, I think, Rachel, you hit on something really, really amazing, is that there are people, and I think it was the same thing. There was a period of incredible innovation in Silicon Valley. There was a period of incredible innovation before, we had the first sort of .com crash. And there was a lot of people that were basically saying the same things that we're saying right now. This technology is going to change the world. They were extremely early. They didn't have any tools in place, and yet they were building on kind of patching things together. And I don't necessarily think that that first .com crash was bad. It just was the space have grown so much and so quickly, and every time when that happens, like you have a bunch of people that are just trying to gain a system. And history repeats itself. We have seen it with plenty of NFT projects that have gotten rugged. It was like the time where it's like you could create like the shittiest thing, and people were going to buy into it because everybody was just like, there's just so much money, I'm just going to buy it and I'm just going to flip it. And everybody was throwing around the idea of community. But the truth is, most people were sort of in it for the money, and most creators and most projects sort of came and went, and we have seen that. But I think that there is like the whole group of people that thrives on that, and that amazing and infectious energy of creating, of sort of like taking idea and putting pieces together, right? And putting these teams together that are amazingly imperfect, but really drive on the idea of innovation. And we're kind of seeing it right now. Like I sometimes like look at some of the teams that come together, and I'm like, wow, like they've got 0 project managers on board, like coming from somebody who like project managed for a very long time. But it doesn't matter, because they're doing amazing stuff, like, perfectly imperfect. Like they're just going, they're throwing ideas together. They're building from like, pieces that like aren't even in place yet. But I think that that's what makes the innovation really amazing. And I mean, you're gonna fail like probably hundreds of times before you hit gold. I mean, that's just like, once in a while, right? You post a video and you are like an overnight TikTok star. But most of the time, people really have to like put in the time and look at the data and say, this works, this doesn't work. You know, like, what am I trying to do? Like, what I'm good at, right? Like, what are my gifts? Like, how do I put it together? What does the world need? And so I think that that's like where we are. It's, you know, what you were saying, in this like super amazing soup of creativity.
But it's all going to be destroyed. Like, it's all going to be wrecked, right? Like, this is the time for people, like, this is a time, this is a time for people to learn, and this is the time for people to be paying attention and on board. Because, like we were talking about earlier, you know, there's a lot of enterprise corporations that are investing, that are researching, that are doing their thing. At the same time, a lot of these big wigs are telling us this is a nothing burger. We shouldn't be doing this. This is all bad. We should all go back to the dollar. And what's going to happen is that you guys already said everything, right? What's going to happen is that in the next bull market, the bull market after that, they're going to come in and they're going to show their footprint. They're going to show their strength. They're going to show their dominance. They're going to steer all the sheeple into their core. And, you know, not that it's all necessarily default bad, but they're going to steer everybody into the corporate enterprise blockchain systems instead of the decentralized, open, immutable, community, publicly verifiable, ripcord based, systems. And with the internet, like you said, again, like you guys, everyone had this vision and this, like, yeah, a lot of people were in there for money, but a lot of people were in there because they knew that the internet was going to change the world. And for, decade or decades, depending on like what section of the technology we're talking about, people were really able to develop and get really creative and do amazing things. But then what happened? Bringing Johnny back. Then what happened is that money came in and money consolidated all of the small players, right? And like money consolidated all of the internet connections. And so instead of like internet connections, the internet being independently owned and having many of them, they were all like bought, right? And email, right? Email is this is something that pisses me off a lot. Email is supposed to be this open, neutral technology. Email protocol, SMTP, it's a technology. Anybody can use it. But the email has been stolen away from the public, and it's not open in public anymore. If you wanted to have your own email server in your basement, you will not be, long term, it's not viable to send email from an email server in your basement to like Gmail, right? Because Gmail will cut you out. And so one of the big questions that I'm asking is how do we I want independent people to make money, and then I want independent people to create money, then I want them to create power. And then the third thing that I want them to do is to take that power and to share it with as many people as possible, not to exclude that power from their enemies, right? Or from groups that are opposite to them, right? The power needs to be distributed. Otherwise, the power becomes powerless, right? You just become like siloed in a castle of whatever your power is, and then it makes you weak. And so we need independent people to make money because cash flow is king. And then we need independent people to become powerful in the space so they can continue making money, because making money isn't going to be enough, because money is going to come in and it's going to just commandeer as much as possible. So I think we need to, right, like create networks and community where we don't just have each other, but we have like systems of making money and making power.
Shit, that is a powerful statement. It is like, that's like what it is. I think that's something I haven't thought about it that much, but you're right. That is like really what it comes down to. And I have to think about this all the time. It's something I hate and something I love. I do it for others. It's so much easier to do this for other people than it is for yourself. It's like, what is my brand? What is my purpose? What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I know for myself, it's just being like as vulnerable and honest and informed as I humanly can, and hoping that leads me to something. That's where I kind of am sitting at this point. It's just trying to do that so people feel more welcome.
You and me both.
What?
You and me both.
Yeah,
just opening up and being vulnerable. Yeah.
You have to be vulnerable. You have to be honest too. Like, and you can't be shilling things to people, and you have to be transparent as much as you can. And I think I'm down to work with the bad guys, the big corporations, other shit, because I'd rather be me than a bunch of 22-year-olds from Deloitte. I actually have a friend who works for Deloitte who they were doing, I don't know what bank it is. I'm not allowed to talk about it. She never told me anyways. And it was an NFT related something. So I took her to NFT NYC. I was like, you need to go. I took her to the Hugs event. I was like, what's something that's gonna be nice and user friendly? She can have a Randy Zuckerberg sighting and talk about it. And she put it in the slideshow to a bunch of corporate executives. And I was just like, okay, this is cool. I mean, Deloitte, please hire me to tell you what to do, because I've had to tell your MBAs that their ideas are terrible before, but they need more to understand more out of the box thinkers. And that's pretty much everyone in this space right now. By definition, you're going to be open-minded. By definition, you're going to be an out of the box thinking person. That's if you're doing anything here, you're going to be nonconformist. You're going to be that. That's what I like, I think, so much about people in this space is like everyone is just themselves. They just want to do what they want to do. And I enjoy that and respect that from everybody. And it's just not like this boring kind of just basic thing of just, I don't know. I think you go around these people and you go to business stuff like enough. Like my friend who works for, like, she has a different business voice. And I'm like, who the fuck is this bitch? Like I had to like sit there and watch her record something that was internal only for like a review or something. And she's just like, and for wellness, it's like, bitch, I know you've had 3 breakdowns. You are not doing that. And I'm like, I do not want the future to be built on fucking lies like this, because that is what it is. Like, I have seen way too much in my career to be like, okay. Like, no one knows anything. That's the secret. All those powerful people don't know shit. They can't even get their own fucking jock cream. They don't know how to do anything for themselves. They get off a plane. They're like, where's my luggage? Where is the thing? I don't know where to go, because all of a sudden when you have a certain amount of money, you forget basic things because you're used to having other people do it for you. It's hysterical to watch, but it's like, these are the people who are supposed to be shaping the future. Why the fuck is it not us? I think that's something that we all have to think about too. It's like all these really stupid, unqualified people reach these high positions of power because they have this like narcissistic sense of self or hubris or whatever the fuck it is. And there's just so many qualified people in this industry out there. Like if you think about panels at different conventions and different conferences, and it's like a lot of times there's people you're like, who the fuck is this? What do they do? Like, I know who they are, but what do they do? And it's kind of like, well, what is the middle ground between that? Because that is a valid kind of personality if it's like palatable to bring people in and to get them to understand things. Like I think that is a relevant position. But then there's also a bunch of dumb like chuckle fucks who are out there just like spewing like financial advice who have no qualifications on anything and won't even offer a disclaimer. And I think it's so wild. And then the fact that it's like it is still a very male dominated space. It is, unfortunately. I mean, so is everything. Somehow, despite women being like having more college degrees, participating more financially, making the majority of financial decisions for a household. I think it's 80% for households by women. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Technology has always been, and I'm with you. I remember the first crypto event that we went to, or conference. I think it was one of the NFT NYCs. It really is like it hits you where you like go in and you look around and you're like, where are all the women? Like, where are all the women? Because it literally is like, I mean, we're talking like 5, maybe 10%. But the interesting thing that I have seen, and there was that like last year, Gary and I went to a lot of conferences. Like we had at the end of that year, I was just like, all right, I need a little break. Like
we picked a good year though. I feel like 2021 was a great year.
But it was amazing because I kind of did this like, from like 1 year, and I used the NFT NYC as a kind of anchor, and so it was like in a year later, and there was a lot more women. Incredibly, just in a year. So, and that's what I love. I love organizations like the Queens, and Gary actually was like, because for a long time, I really wasn't active on Twitter. Like I've been in the space since like very long time, and we were running local meetups and meeting with local people. It's like 2016, and I think 2017 we started minting coins. I mean, we've been kind of doing this for a very long time. But and Gary has been on Twitter for a very long time, and he's always like, you should check out Twitter. And I'm like, I just don't want another social media. And I've never been a huge social media person. Of course I've used Facebook and Instagram. And then I remember he started talking about the queens. He's like, you have to like get on Twitter. And he's like, there's this group of women and they are like killing it. And it was so amazing. And I remember I went into a Twitter space. So it kind of started going, it was like in the days of Clubhouse, right? And like where a lot of people were kind of for the first time in these rooms, and you didn't have video, but you could at least, it made the first step where you were just like, you could hide behind either, the photos or your tweets, to actually having conversations. It wasn't just, because the videos is like, you can record the video, you can edit the crap out of it, you can still tell a story about your life that isn't true. But if you're in a room and you're having a conversation, like eventually something's gonna come out where you're like, wow, like this is who you are. Like it's very hard to sustain the life that you created. It's much easier to do it through a very highly edited feed. And so I was like, oh, this is where we get to see real people and see who they are and build connections. And so I remember I went onto the space, and I think that was probably in the end of summer, maybe like August. And it was like a bunch of queens on it. And I was like, oh, and I immediately like got on Twitter and I emailed them and I'm like, this is who I am. This is who I do. How can I help? Like I was like, I love you. I love what you're doing.
And then that was Queen Ada. I am so thankful that you messaged the page. So when you like get messages like that, you want to like, I can kind of stalk the people. So then I went to her page and I was scrolling and I was like, oh, like that's Gary's wife. Like I was shook. I was like, I did not know Gary had a wife. I was like, oh my gosh, I love her. And I seen that little cheese platter that you guys had when you were in the meeting or whatever. And I was like, she's so awesome. And I was like, hey, do you know how to do this? And then she sent me like everything that she knew how to do. And I was like, I love her. I want her in now. Like, she's so awesome.
I know how you feel.
Gary's like, yeah, I live with her. She's so amazing. I love her.
Yeah, I just, I think that if we can, and this is where I think it's challenging because as techs, like if you're into technology, I think that you are a little bit of an introvert, and maybe you love people, but you spend a lot of time like in these highly focused in front of the computer. Like I know Gary and I work together, we build websites, and when we have like work sessions when we're like getting down to the weeds and actually like coding in and putting everything together, it'll be like 10 hours. Like we're like 2 laptops open on the couch, and we're just like at it. And it creates this kind of like highly focused, and a lot of, coders and developers and people who are initially drawn to this space, degens, right? They're like that. They can go down these rabbit holes. And those are also the people, right, that are like the foundational building blocks of the community. And so the challenging piece is that you're taking a bunch of people who are used to being, fairly solitary creatures, or they're used to just connecting with other humans over technology, right? And you're trying to put them together and build community. And that can sometimes be challenging because you need in community, you need a lot of different people. So you have in every community, you have the community builders, and they're basically are your social butterflies. Like they're out and they're connecting with everybody, and everybody, you know, loves them and trusts them, and they bring new people in. And then you have like the, you know, the people who are actually like building the foundational pieces, right? So they're often behind the scenes at the very, very center of the community, and they're like, okay, so this is how we're gonna like create a governance within the community, this is how we're gonna distribute the resources, right? And then you have like the builders, right? You have the people that are like out there and building. And so it's like you have to bring everybody together to create these different pieces of the community. And sometimes that is very challenging, because you basically have a bunch of degens that are used to being solitary creatures who all crave connection but don't quite know like how to come together. And I'm always saying, like, the more people you can bring and the bigger those communities can be, then it's we really create the, you know, the network effect. It's I see Kimba in the DMs, and it's like you 100% need a village, like.
Aww.
And I think the more and more you grow these communities, then the bigger the bigger is your voice, right? If there's a bunch of solitary degens, then when those big companies come in, right, and they're like, oh, this is like what metaverse is, and you're like, this is not what it is. Like, you haven't been here in the trenches, and what the hell, right? But if you don't have a unified voice to be like, hey, like, no, this is what we're building, it makes it really, really difficult to, you know, to kind of be heard, because it's just like a bunch of solitary people like screaming from behind their computers, like, no. That's why I think that it's one of the biggest fundamental things that we can do right now is it's learn and practice how we can actually organize as communities.
Yeah, that's a tough part. I know. So like for me, I'm a weirdo of the, I go between extroverted, introverted. Like my personality is very out there, but people exhaust me. That's what introversion is people. You need solo time in your own head, in your own universe. Like an ideal night in for me is like a solid kicking night on Twitter where things are just like just banger on banger and just dopamine hit, like out of control, like that kind of night oftentimes. But then also I go to IRL stuff too. Like it's hard to balance it and to find your place, because I'm somebody, I don't really categorize anything, and that's fucking hard. Like that's Web 2, it's been hard, Web 3 sometimes it's hard, but I'm just like, you know what, I just need to keep going, just figure it out. What is my thing? What is it going to be? And just be involved with as many groups of people as possible. Like, because I think that's something we all get really siloed. And I think that's something that could be a problem. And it's better to be united versus siloed, just for when all these other people come through. And exactly what you're saying, like that's exactly what it is. And they're all going to come through. Like if you're having these individual small groups of people are just like screaming into the void. Now everyone needs to kind of be able to band together and say, okay, this is what this is, what it's not. This is how this goes. And be willing to work with other people. That's like one thing I cannot stand is like some parts of community, they just don't fuck with other people. Like, I'm like, no, this is stupid. You're being dumb. Like people who are just like, like Bitcoin maxis are like, NFTs are a scam. Like, excuse me. No, please go look into this. Also, like, how are you open-minded enough to be into crypto yet not open-minded enough for NFTs? Are you going to not have like a stack 100%. Like Bitcoin like name? Like, what's your deal? Like that, it confuses me, because it's like, well, what do you think this is going to be doing? Are you just here because you think it's going to be the next thing? Like, if you truly fucking believe it, figure it out. Make some friends. Go to an event. Like that's the thing too. Like exclusively blockchain people, and they're like, I am exclusively a blockchain person. Don't talk to me about NFTs. Excuse me, you are building the infrastructure in which 100%. NFTs are built upon. So I don't understand that you can have one without the other. That just seems really fucking dumb.
And the number of people who don't have their ENS name, who are not, I'm not talking about the Bitcoin maxis who they hate everything. I'm talking about people who are into Ethereum, building on Ethereum,
Yeah.
And they don't have their ENS team. It's just
stupid. That should be a starter pack. Like that should be like a welcome. We should literally just band together. Like honestly, should just band together and just give people we think are just contributing a lot into the space and somehow for some magical reason don't have an ENS. Because you know how like a lot of NFT collections will do that, like they kind of for people a tribute art.
They'll just give you, They'll give you an NFT.
Well into that area, make sure that they're known.
Yeah, just that. I mean, maybe some of those ideas are something we could talk about today and maybe a little bit. We've been talking for like an hour and 20 minutes now. I think we typically wrap up lately at the hour and a half mark, so like another 10 minutes or so. Like maybe like a few minutes, and we'll do like outros and let everybody like make sure we get closing thoughts in there and stuff. Do you guys have time to chat a little bit longer? We could do like an after show where we can say things a little more freely, or just
I'll make myself a drink.
Yeah, I have time.
This is fun. Make myself a drink. My husband's playing video games downstairs. Like he was out board game day yesterday.
He's playing video games in the living room. I
touched RPG grass yesterday. That's what I said. I touched RPG level grass. I was like, I went in and we played it's an RPG game for 6 hours. I had no crypto Twitter the entire time. It was, you gotta take a break. You gotta touch grass, wait, they perform. Gotta be like, okay, what you gotta like. I think that's why all the Silicon Valley guys get so like into meditation, into this, and like it's such a thing because you kind of need it when you have so much noise coming at you all the time.
Especially 24/7 like us, right? Because like we're all basically entrepreneurs. We're just not all actively soliciting to get paid for our services. A lot of us are entrepreneurs and we're selling our services for free, and people don't understand, you know what I mean, that they're selling their services for free, but we're in this 24/7 365 days a year. And even if you're not connected to crypto Twitter for 7 hours playing an RPG game, there's probably a list of ENS names you're thinking about while you're playing.
I did. There's so many good ones.
All the time.
My character name is an NFT related name. It's Pax Solana. I made my character name. Pax Solana.
That is so
and they're like some type of like, I don't know what the fuck are they? Some elementalist or something. It's dope. I'm like, why? So like actually some of that overlaps now. Some of that overlap the world, because my husband's a fantasy novel loving, board game loving kind of nerd person. So like a lot of that shit, they bought all the names up. We like go. I went through it. We were going through it yesterday. We're like, okay, Brandon Sanderson related ones. Like, what did he got? Actually, one of his authors had an NFT collection. It was garbage. The art was garbage, and it was not received well. So I went and I tried to find his ENS. It is only his name and then hotcheeto.eth, which is like amazing. So my life question is, his name is Pierce Brown. So does Pierce Brown own Hot Cheeto, or does Hot Cheeto own Pierce Brown? That is a solid question. I would like to leave it for now. Like that is a solid question, because you actually have like we're having to talk about the freaking scholarship. Talk about the scholarship. It's important.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's really amazing, and I always encourage when any of those opportunities come in or happen, where there are either grants or scholarships, like I'm always encouraging women to apply, because I'm like, A, like we need to have more representation in the space, and B, oftentimes like the guys are like, yeah, I talk, I tweet like every day, and therefore I'm creating content, and so I'm a content creator. And oftentimes for women, it's like, oh, I like build this following of like 10,000 people, but I don't do anything. And I'm like, what the hell?
It's like, yes, you do. Yes,
you do a lot. You do so much for the space, because the space wouldn't be here for the people, like the content creators, I think are like, that's where the most onboarding happens. Yeah. It's people connecting around that. But I would love to dive in and talk a little bit more about that, and maybe scholarships. There are a few queens that have been delayed that might jump in on the after show. I know they're on their way home, so maybe we'll get them for the after show. So I would say, let's close this, and then we'll open up an after show and chat for another hour or so, and like really dive into the ins and outs of community building and building infrastructure and organizing on a much, much deeper level.
There could be a little bit of shit talking too. But
a lot of we do
That's
a lot
my
of,
thing. I
we
love
do
to do
a
that.
lot of shit talking in
yeah,
after
I mean,
show.
the after show is good for that.
Yeah.
I mean, just to jump in real quick. Yeah. If you're, for everyone watching, like this video, it really, really helps us. Leave a comment. We love seeing your engagement. Feel free to check us out at mintingcoins.com. Mintingcoins.com, you can become a member. 50 cents a day, you can get access to our members only content, members only videos. These after show videos are private videos, and the only way to watch the private videos live or after they've been published is through mintingcoins.com. So like the video and subscribe. Couldn't be here without you. We're looking to do what we do with minting coins to help support our Web3 writers. We are paying for all of our content at web3domains.com, helping to onboard people to give people content when they're searching for that content in Google, and at the same time helping to support independent people, Web3 professionals who are building in the bear market. So when the bull market comes back, we're going to have people that we can point to, people on this call, people and authors at Web3 domains, where they have what they have to stand on with their thought pieces at Web3 domains or at minting coins. And so this is really to create content for people to find, new people to find, and then goal 2 to lift up, thought leaders in the space. One of the things we really didn't get into at this call, but just wanted to touch upon, is that we have the public good scholarship. As Rachel was talking about the ENS DAO and reading the Constitution and learning more about, how this DAO works, as Adriana was saying, how the ENS DAO is very decentralized, but does require participation, because without participation, it will re-centralize. The public good scholarships, anybody could have nominated anybody. Someone did nominate me. And there's a lot of nominations that maybe in a future video we'll go through. What's that?
I said cheater. Just kidding.
What?
That's a shit ton of votes, though. Damn. I'm looking. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I didn't know there was that many people in this ecosystem. I mean, if you have the government token, I know, but still, like, damn.
Yeah, and Helen Stans, who was on our show, she's up there as well. So excited to see her, and she does the ENS redirect website with her partner. But these are really great. I voted on I voted for everybody except one of them, and I also didn't vote for the none of the above option. And the one person I didn't vote for them because their nomination was talking about something that they were building in the future. It wasn't talking about something they had built in the past. And because the purpose of this ENS small grants was to support people for their past work, I just didn't vote for that nomination because it didn't talk about what they did in the past. But everybody else is just such great work with great examples of what they've done. Super excited to have even taken the time to read it all. So I definitely recommend people take time to read it all. It expires in the voting ends in 1 day. So if you haven't voted yet and you have some ENS tokens, it'd be really meaningful to the people, because like when I click on myself, I can see like all the people that voted, for my small grants, and there's some people in here. If you have 0 ENS tokens, it's impossible for you to vote. And so these people that have zero votes, they actually have some amount of ENS token. And because they have some amount of ENS token, a negligible non-financial amount, they're able to participate and have their voice heard, even though that their overall percentage might be very, very low. They're able to have their voice heard and to participate in this. And so definitely recommend people go through that, in addition to liking the video and subscribing and all that stuff. But with that being said, let's go around the room and then we'll close out the show. So Who wants to go first?
I'll start. I am drowning. Thank you for coming. I'm so sorry I didn't get to like talk a lot of the first half. Every time I tried to talk, Baby Quay was like, let me talk too. But I had to put her down to go to sleep, and I felt bad, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna hate me. But thank you for having me. I am at Queen Gway on Twitter, on Instagram, probably anywhere you can find me, or drowningpussy.eth. That'll probably be a simpler way to find me as well. I had a great time. Ada, Gary, Rachel, you guys are big staples in this community. It's been an honor. But yeah.
All right, I guess I'll go and awkwardly say goodbye. It's great having me on here. I mean, yes, my involvement with the ENS Queens, I think this is the future. I think this is exactly like the edge anyone who really wants to be doing this for their entire life and their career should be doing and understanding this by now. And I'm like amazing. It's amazing to be surrounded by people who are this smart and understand things and just open-minded at the same time and are just like have done things with their life, and just, it's awesome. Just yay. It's just great to be around this and actually be happy being surrounded by other people, because I feel like just Web2 me is just like at everybody constantly. So thanks for everyone for being here and doing everything that you do for the space. I just need to get more involved with the voting. I'm like, this is gonna be fun. I feel like I tried to vote. I'm like, it's fun. I need to get myself some tokens. Like, this is gonna be fun. Enjoy it. And thanks for having me.
And you could find Rachel at RAN
Ransax on other stuff. I know it's knowing the name on it, but I actually do have like, yeah, ransax.eth. I have that. I have rachelsachs.eth. My full name, rachelsachs@gmail.com. That's my secret docs.
She is fully doxing herself right now.
I have been doxed. My house has been on the internet. I am very doxed.
Ma'am.
Very doxed person. I think that actually helps. I chose to remain doxed. Everything is real. Everything's my name. Or like, whoever they want, they can deep fake me. I go on NFT inspect, make sure people aren't using my shit every few months. That's the real tea, is NFT inspect for make sure no one's using your identity. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure, Gary, someone's probably doing that with you, because I'm like, anyone got a Bored Ape profile picture? You were definitely right-click saving and using that. So,
you know, someone brought that up recently, and I was like, no, like definitely not. No one's doing it. Like, I'm like nobody. No one's doing that to me. And I like Googled it or in Twitter. I Twittered it, and I was like, oh, there's actually people doing that.
Yeah. You can report them directly through NFT inspect, which is awesome. I did that, and I was like 3 people impersonating me, and I was just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. All right.
Yeah, the impersonation piece is real. Definitely. I think, you know, that is like such a great advice is to check whether somebody's using your identity out there or not. I am Ada.eth. You can find me under Unfolded Life. I just also want to say, if you are a woman and you're new to the space and you're like, this is way too overwhelming, or all I'm hearing is just a bunch of bros, please find ENS Queens on Twitter and DM the account, and we will add you to a private group. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing group of women. Some days we simply say good morning. Some days we talk about how to balance your life. There's a lot of mothers with small kids, with bigger kids. You know, it's an it's one of like the most supportive spaces that I've been in. And also at the same time, it's a great space to get onboarded into ENS or into Web3 in general. There's no questions that are, stupid. It's, if you need hand holding, this is the place to be to really be supported every step of the way. And I'm so happy, and we're growing the community. So definitely find us. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Also, if you like the more personal approach, any one of us here, you know, you can hit us up. We are all very nice people, I promise. But you don't have to be intimidated by like a big page or none of that. So
very cool. And I am Gary Palmer Jr.eth, and I'm glad that together we are minting coins.